Long cinematic true crime story inspired by real events. Los Angeles, the mid-1980s. At first glance, Southern California looked like paradise. Palm trees lined the boulevards. The Pacific Ocean shimmered beneath the afternoon sun. Tourists filled the beaches. Hollywood glittered with dreams. But beneath the bright lights and endless sunshine, fear was growing. A fear so powerful that it would grip an entire state. A fear with a name, the Night Stalker. His real name was Richard Ramirez, and for more than a year he turned ordinary nights into nightmares. The boy who learned darkness. Long before newspapers called him the Night Stalker, Richard Ramirez was just another kid growing up in El Paso, Texas. Born in 1960, Richard came from a troubled family. Violence wasn't unusual inside the Ramirez household. His father was known for his explosive temper. Arguments often ended with screaming, threats, and physical punishment. Young Richard grew up surrounded by anger, but there was another influence in his life. An older cousin named Mike Ramirez. Mike was a Vietnam War veteran. To Richard, Mike seemed like a hero, a soldier, a tough guy, someone worth admiring. But Mike carried dark memories from the war. He often told Richard horrifying stories. Stories about torture, violence, death. He even showed Richard disturbing photographs from Vietnam, images no child should ever see. Instead of being protected from darkness, Richard was introduced to it at an early age. Then came a moment that would haunt him forever. One day, Richard watched Mike shoot and kill his own wife during an argument. The murder happened right in front of him. Richard was only a teenager. The image never left his mind. A dangerous obsession. As Richard grew older, he became fascinated by violence. He experimented with drugs. He skipped school. He spent more time drifting through life than building a future. Eventually, he moved to California. Los Angeles seemed like the perfect place to disappear. Millions of people, endless neighborhoods, countless strangers. Nobody paid attention to a skinny young drifter with long hair and dark eyes. Richard spent years living a chaotic lifestyle, sleeping wherever he could, using drugs heavily, stealing to survive, breaking into homes. But inside him, darker fantasies continued to grow, and eventually those fantasies became reality. The beginning of the nightmare. June 1984. An elderly woman named Jenny Vinkow was found murdered inside her Los Angeles apartment. The attack was brutal, senseless, terrifying. At the time, nobody realized this was only the beginning. Police treated it as another homicide, a terrible crime. But nothing more. They were wrong. Far more victims would follow. Fear spreads across California. During 1984 and 1985, attacks occurred throughout Southern California. The victims seemed completely random. Young, old, women, couples, single residents, rich neighborhoods, poor neighborhoods. There was no pattern, no obvious connection. That randomness terrified investigators. Most serial killers followed specific victim types. Richard Ramirez didn't. Anyone could become a target. Anyone. A retired grandmother, a businessman, a married couple, a teenager. No one knew who would be next. And because there was no pattern, nobody knew how to stop him. The devil walks at night. Most attacks happened after dark. Richard would move silently through neighborhoods, searching, watching, waiting. Sometimes he entered through unlocked windows, sometimes through doors. Sometimes he simply found whatever path gave him access. Entire communities became prisoners inside their own homes. Families installed stronger locks. Gun sales increased. Neighborhood watch groups formed everywhere. Parents refused to let children stay out after sunset. People slept with baseball bats beside their beds. The fear became overwhelming. Every creaking floorboard sounded suspicious. Every shadow seemed threatening. Every barking dog triggered panic. California was living through a nightmare. Satan and the Night Stalker. As investigators learned more about Richard, they discovered his fascination with Satanism. He often used satanic symbols. He spoke about the devil. He enjoyed shocking people with references to evil and darkness. Some survivors later described hearing him say chilling phrases during attacks. The media seized on these details immediately. Newspapers portrayed him as something beyond human. A monster, a demon, a living embodiment of evil. The nickname Night Stalker spread rapidly. Soon, every television station in America was covering the case. The entire nation watched in horror. The investigation law enforcement agencies faced enormous pressure. Hundreds of detectives worked the case. Thousands of tips poured in. Every lead had to be investigated. Every witness interview mattered. But Richard continued slipping away. Crime scenes stretched across multiple counties. Different police departments struggled to coordinate information. Evidence moved slowly. Communication wasn't as fast as it is today. Meanwhile, the killer kept attacking. Every new murder increased public outrage. Every failure increased pressure on investigators. The Night Stalker appeared unstoppable, the mistake. Like many criminals, Richard eventually made a mistake. At one crime scene, investigators recovered a fingerprint, a crucial clue. Forensic experts worked tirelessly. Eventually, they matched the print. Suddenly, police had a name. Richard Ramirez, a known criminal, a drifter, a burglar, a suspect. For the first time, the ghost had an identity. Police released his photograph to the public, and everything changed. The face of fear, the image appeared everywhere. Newspapers, television broadcasts, store windows, police stations. People stared at the photograph. Long dark hair, sharp features, cold eyes. Millions of Californians memorized his face. Now the Night Stalker wasn't an invisible monster anymore. He was a man, and everyone was looking for him. The final chase. August 1985. Richard returned to Los Angeles after traveling. He had no idea his face was everywhere. No idea police had identified him. No idea the entire city was hunting him. When he stepped off public transportation, people immediately recognized him. Someone pointed. Another person shouted, "That's Richard Ramirez." Panic spread. Richard ran, but ordinary citizens refused to let him escape. People chased him through streets and neighborhoods. More joined the pursuit. The crowd grew larger, angrier, faster. The hunter had become the prey. Residents who had spent months living in fear finally had a chance to fight back. Eventually, the crowd caught him. They restrained him until police arrived. After months of terror, the Night Stalker was finally in custody. The trial. The trial became one of the most famous criminal cases in American history. Reporters filled the courtroom. Television crews covered every development. Richard appeared calm, sometimes smiling, sometimes showing little emotion. His behavior shocked the public. Family members of victims watched from the gallery. Survivors testified about their horrifying experiences. Evidence piled up. Witness after witness described the nightmare. The case against him became overwhelming. Eventually, Richard Ramirez was convicted of numerous murders and other violent crimes. The jury recommended the death penalty. Justice had finally caught up with him. The legacy of fear. Years passed. The murders ended, but memories remained. People who lived through the Night Stalker era never forgot those nights. They remembered checking locks repeatedly. They remembered sleeping with lights on. They remembered fearing every unexpected noise after midnight. Most of all, they remembered how random the attacks felt. Because that's what made Richard Ramirez so terrifying. He didn't just attack individuals, he attacked the feeling of safety itself. He made people afraid inside their own homes. And once that feeling is gone, it is difficult to get back. The end of the night. Stalker Richard Ramirez spent the rest of his life behind bars. In 2013, he died while still imprisoned. But his crimes remain part of American criminal history. A reminder of one of the most frightening crime sprees the nation has ever witnessed. A reminder that evil can sometimes hide behind an ordinary face. And a reminder of a time when millions of people locked their doors, looked into the darkness outside their windows, and wondered one terrifying question: what if the Night Stalker comes here tonight? For an entire generation of Californians, that wasn't just a question. It was a fear they lived with every single night. The end.